I'm glad that this panel happens during this forum. It means that people understand my position and not only my position. Another question is what exactly we should discuss, because I personally take care of women who suffered because of the war, who went through tortures and rapes, and suffered from terrible war crimes. Yesterday we talked about children who do not look for psychologists, thinking that it's not necessary. We are going to speak about the women who are waiting for their husbands because they even call themselves invisible. Nobody cares about them. Nobody knows what pain they live with. And sometimes people ask questions, "How are you?" or say, "I understand you," but it's a crime because nobody can understand exactly what they feel. We speak about mental health almost every day because all of us live in abnormal stress. Just to read any brochure, any news, any psychologist, neurophysiologist, neuropsychologist will say that what Ukrainians endure today is a subject of further discussions and further research in psychoanalysis and psychotherapy. So that was my introduction, and I would like to introduce our speakers today. I drafted this monologue about mental health and wanted to emphasize the topic we are going to discuss today. We agreed that we want to underline mental health of our warriors who are fighting the front line, who are coming back and undergo rehabilitation after injuries. There are many articles about how we should behave with them, whether we can approach them and shake their hand, saying thank you. I recently had an interview with one serviceman who came to Kyiv just to spend here the Day of Ukrainian Defenders. And we celebrated it 1 week ago, and he said that nobody came to him, nobody approached him, and the taxi drivers were hiding their eyes. I think that we will voice this problem today and discuss it in depth. I would like to introduce Director of Mental Health and Rehabilitation Center, Lisova, Poliana, Ksenia, Voznitsyna, Miss Ruslana Danilkina, our veteran. No, it's not the way I want to introduce you. I want to say it another way. So she is a volunteer and expert of the first Superhuman Center, Olesia Zhulynska, CEO of Superhuman Center and Hospital for Rehabilitation of those who suffered consequences of war, Oksana, Zbitneva, head of the Coordinating Center for Mental Health, the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine, and Olesia Zhulynska, head of Public Affairs and Communications of PrivatBank. So as you can see, we are going to discuss almost all the areas where the topic of mental health is important. And first of all, I would like you to watch a video by Dmitry Monatik and all of us. I would like you to ask this question, how are you? And understand better what is mental health. How are you? We were not going to experience this terror. We didn't even thought that they would come to us. Don't be silent. Ask, how are you? I know that sometimes we want to cry, even in the most difficult situations. When you want to breathe but you can't, please don't allow you to be broken. Talk to me, say how are you. At one moment you have a home, and just in a second you can lose it. When you forgot about nights with the sleep, you shouldn't hide. You should allow these good things to be voiced. Don't stay silent. How are you? We are experiencing it with dignity. We will be able to cope with it together. Please don't stay with it alone. Tell me, how are you? Because even in 1 minute we may lose our lives, because that's why we need to live now. And the time flies fast, and we cannot cope without each other. Tell me, I want to hear you. Please give me an answer. How are you? Don't know about you. How you answer this question. During these 18 months, but each and everyone has their own answer to this question, and it's different every day. So, first of all, I would like that we provide the reasoning for this problematic for the discussion. I would like to discuss everything the veterans face in our society. So, Ksenia, if I may, I would like to start with you. I gave several examples with women, female warriors. Actually, I don't know how to react to this question. Why you let him go there? Doesn't he have something to do here? You'll hear about these questions from my husband. He came here to speak about entrepreneurship at the front line. But I often say that there are some things that should be avoided with the women who are waiting for their warriors. So, what's the first thing they need after they come back from the front line to the society? Thank you, Masha. Hello, everyone, and thank you for the service to all the veterans. You probably heard this phrase several times. I'm repeating it all the time. Mental health of every defender depends on every person in Ukraine, not on the medical workers or psychotherapists or even the person who comes back, but everyone who meets them. It's the family members, it's colleagues at the workplace, it's people in a cafe, in a bus, everywhere. So if we don't cherish it, if we don't develop it, we need to learn it. And I'm repeating it all the time. There are many possibilities to learn how to do it. How? Where? For example, there are many support groups for women. For example, Veteran Hub, Ukrainian Women's Force, Free Choice. You can just Google and you can find many resources on this topic. It was not the case in 2014 or 15. I've been working on this topic since 2014-15. I started working with my first patients who were coming back from the war. We have this panel even during the economic forum. There are many initiatives where we raise this topic. You should just explore it. You should learn about it every day. Not everyone is empathic and understanding. Can you just give a few examples, a few rules? Was I right when I said that we should approach these people? We shouldn't hide our eyes. Well, it's not about them. It's not about the people you want to thank. You should think about yourself. What are your feelings? What you may feel? Why you may feel shame? Why you may hide your eyes. The main thing is honesty. You can see it in gestures, in facial changes. So if somebody says that you should not persist with some questions or something else, you should take it into account. Everything depends on the situation, whether it's a close person or you just met somebody in a cafe. The visual contact is important. Don't hide your eyes. Be honest with the person. Express your gratitude and they will feel it. Our society is quite specific, and I'm not saying that everyone is guilty, all those who want to stay aside. But let's speak about what we need. I just read one thing. Just remember these people stopped Russian army. Just remember it for the whole life. These people keep fighting with our enemies. You need to keep this memory. You said in our private conversation that there are such things as invisible injuries. What it means? Yes, I try to speak about it more because we will have these invisible injuries. There will be more of them than visible ones. I'm not saying the situation is catastrophic, but I don't think that we should put on red glasses and think that most problems with the mental health appear when something traumatic is in the past. That's how our cycle works. It reacts in some times, especially if there is no support. But there is another problem with the invisible injuries. There is this topic of concussions, and there is this term signature of war, and I think it has an epidemic nature in Ukraine. Even Kostya, he put on special equipment today. It was complicated for him to hear the sounds around him, and that's the consequence of the concussion, of the injuries he got at war. So the one you called Kostya, it's Kostya Chabala. Let's thank him for coming here today. No applause. No applause. See, you're practicing this thing we were speaking about. That's something we should learn. Konstantin did huge work As far as I know, the rehabilitation lasted for many years, since 2015, and you have some results. But after the full-scale invasion, Konstantin went to defend our country again. Should we wait a bit, or can we start discussing it? Then please take the mic. Tell us Konstantin's story, please. Konstantin is a great example of honorable person with the Callsign Viking. In 2016-18, he was fighting in anti-terrorist operation, and he went through many difficult situations there. He got 3 or 4 concussions, right, 4, sorry. And we were dealing with neurological problems. And it's our personal pain of all the teams who have been working with our veterans since 2014, because almost all the veterans went to fight in 2022, and that's our loss, the loss of unique people who were working and trying to keep living. Of course, on the 24th of February, Kostya went back there. Can you say some words? Can you come here? No applause, dear friends. Do it silently. Thank you for being here. Kostya is dealing with it. He has a great work. He was working in the Ministry of Science and Education, but he also founded his own business. He has a massage center. Everyone is invited. And for Kostya, his work is the main thing that helps him to cope with everything. Please tell us about your feelings, what you feel when you are in a crowded space. I didn't quite understand the question. Let's talk about the attitude of society to the veterans. What would you like to change? What just bothers you? Well, you know, applause doesn't bother me. Thank you.
Важко зараз. Мені не тому, що ви аплодуєте, не тому, що на мене звернули увагу, а тому, що просто зараз, умовно, невелике приміщення, багато людей, і серед цих людей я бачу чотирьох людей, на яких я можу розраховувати.
Чому?
Окей, не ветеран Ksenia. Да. Це ті, кого я зараз бачу, ті, кого я зараз ідентифікую. Всі інші, вибачте, ви всі дуже класні, ви всі дуже красиві, я не можу на вас сфокусуватися. Тому, коли сказали, от Ksenia каже, побачили ветерана, щиро посміхніться, підійдіть, обніміть, ой, не факт, ой, не завжди. Інколи мені потрібно просто вдягти навушники і зробити так, щоб світ навколо був просто красивою картинкою з телевізора. Да? І я, який за цим світом красиво спостерігаю. Да, мені повезло, я знайшов собі роботу, яка дозволяє мені контролювати кількість комунікацій в моєму житті. Да, мені довелося піти з сім'ї рік тому, в мене є дружина, є син, з яким я не можу знаходитися поруч, бо довго знаходитися поруч з кимось я взагалі не можу. 1,5-2 години мені потрібно міняти обстановку. Інакше мене накриває. Да? Тому масаж годинний – це отака от тема. Я знаю, коли людина прийде, я знаю, що з нею робити, і саме головне, я знаю, коли вона піде. Причому, якщо довго, то я їм кажу, що вибачте, я більше не можу з вами знаходитися. Ті, хто до мене приходять, да, це на 95% люди, які пов'язані з війною. Вони розуміють, вони кажуть, да, Костя, без проблем. Я знаю, що я дуже стараюся адаптуватися до цього світу вже дуже довго. Скільки? 8 місяців минулого року, да? 8 місяців минулого року я провів в госпіталях. Причому, якщо брати 22-й рік, в мене не було контузій, в мене не було поранень. Ми просто вийшли з-під Харкова в спокійне місце, і ввечері я перестав розмовляти. Сів їсти, розмовляю, встав, я не розмовляю. І розмовляти я почав вже в Києві, в психіатричному відділенні. А потім повернувся в армію і за тиждень знову перестав розмовляти. А потім знову 3 тижні в госпіталі. А потім я знову повернувся в армію і 2 дні ще розмовляв. А потім я розмовляти став у лютому, коли випадково на останніх силах вліз в контрастний душ.
Костянтин, а скажіть,
For that. Can you kindly tell us the fact that you turned for psychological relief, that you are going through psychotherapy right now? This is helping, isn't it? Because without that, it would be much harder for you to handle your situation. You know, when I've
Rehabilitation Center у 2018 році я був, я вже повернувся з війни, у мене там 2 роки війни, 4 контузії, поранення, все. Я повернувся з війни, я повернувся на роботу, я працював там в Українському центрі оцінювання якості освіти, працював в Міністерстві освіти. І на якомусь етапі, буквально, це вже пройшов трошки більше року після повернення з війни, на якомусь етапі за 2 чи 3 тижні я закінчився. В мене пішла пам'ять, в мене пішла увага, в мене пішла концентрація. Стало практично неможливо спілкуватися з оточуючими. І там мені повезло, що в мене є друзі, ветерани, їх дружини, психологи, Таня Руденка, які сказали, Костя, от є реабілітаційний центр, от тобі туди треба. Вони мене взяли за шкірки разом з моєю дружиною, завезли в цей центр. І мені там, я вважаю, що повезло, бо там після всього цього, що ми там лікували, за все, Ксенін психіатр, лікар, сказав, що мальчик хорош працювати головою, давай працювати ручками. Думай про це, інакше ти будеш раз на півроку в нас лежати і тобі буде страшно.
бачите, це теж допомога.
This was of great and immense help. Please resume your seat. Thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. I suppose that everyone hearing you right now as you were speaking was thinking about the number of similar people. And I really love it that you have your sense of humor with you. You still keep joking. That's a fantastic skill. It's also a kind of rehabilitation of your consciousness. So many people there are with their own stories, many men, many minds, and it takes all sorts, lots of people like that already walking in the streets of Ukraine. I suppose
nurturing ourselves, raising our children, teaching ourselves and teaching our children how to behave around military personnel. It also is very important. Order. Our time is limited. Of course, we could talk endlessly, but let us move on to visible injuries, because unlike that, we have just been talking about invisible scars in the hearts and minds of people, but you have to deal with reviving, rejuvenating, bringing back to life people. So what do you have to deal with at the Superhuman Center, and what does that have to do with, what are the consequences on mental health, the imprint of that you can see that is leaving on your wards? In the first place, I have to say that we are not reviving them. They are getting themselves revived. We're just helping them. We are instrumental to that. But if people are not willing to stand up firmly on their feet, they don't want to get back to usual life, then medicine, Ola Rudneva and Ksenia Voznitsyna, we will be rendered helpless, because the individual has to be willing, literally willing to get back to life. But of course, we provide comprehensive assistance, something that starts with psychological relief, and we are working on it because we don't think that it's perfect yet. People are provided with prosthetics, and then they learn to walk, and we have added another service because we came to realize that nobody needs just arms or hands. It sounds very strange, but we need these limbs in order to go somewhere and hug someone. So if people are not motivated to live, if they don't have any excuses to leave their homes, then they don't need any prostheses. These prostheses will be just left lying there on the shelf. So we added this fourth service, reintegrating people into civil life, looking for employment, because people have to get retrained, people have to change roles. Rusa has done that. She is now part of the Superhumans, and Zhenya, who is sitting in the front row, has trained to become an IT specialist. Ola is dreaming to get back to folk dancing, and I hope he will do that. But people have to change roles and rediscover, reinvent themselves. There are some wounds that we see, but there are multiple wounds we cannot identify them. When I used to work in education, in HIV, we were told, treat everyone as if everyone is infected with HIV. And now we have to say, treat everyone as if everyone is mentally ill, because some people are badly affected by that, others to a lesser extent. But of course, we can ask people how they are coping with that, what psychological relief and assistance they may need, what they require from the society. But it was a very good phrase that Kostya has just said. He doesn't know how his life will proceed. He comes into some premises and he doesn't know what his response will be. In our Superhuman Center, we don't have hair dryers, hand dryers, because people don't have limbs. And our patients begin to ask for mental assistance because this is a terrible trigger for them. And we try to organize our spaces in a very, very special way. We have specific colors used, and these hand dryers, this is something that immediately serves like a trigger. And people have panic attacks as a result of that because they don't have limbs. And we had to work with that. And with Alona Kurkova, we worked with on these notions, because once again, we have to respect people's noise landscapes, because we don't know where they are coming back from. People are getting revived themselves. Whether we can help them, of course, we have to become a support to them. We know to a certain extent what we have to do, but we still have to ask people, how can I help you? Just like Zhenya said, don't just let up a seat for them. Don't impose or force our services on them, but just ask people in the first place what they may need and try to accommodate them. And what Ksenia said is also extremely important. We have to change ourselves, definitely. It's also about us. I'm so proud of what you do. And you're so inspirational. Thank you for your stories, everything that you keep doing non-stop. Sometimes the heroes of your stories, of your posts, they're so highly inspirational to other people who have all of their limbs in place. However, the more I get to work with mental health issues, the more I feel to sense that we are in a kind of a vicious circle. Because, just like you said, these people have to be willing to get revive themselves, but PTSD, the consequences of that, the clinical depression, that is like an avalanche, covers people, and Ksenia will probably agree with Matt. It's not always about the case. When people are conscious and aware of the fact that they do require help. Just 2 days ago, we talked to a girl who is 19. She hasn't been to the front line, but the war has affected her so badly. She was in occupation, she had lost her relatives, and she swallowed 10 pills in order to do away with this life. And when they had given her a wash of the stomach and explained what she had done, she quoted, she said, "I couldn't have done it." So she was diagnosed with a clinical depression. So this is a civil individual's case. Let alone ex-civilians. So I keep thinking about PTSD consequences that are going to be uncontrollable for ex-combatants. They will probably be running out of energies to turn out to someone, to reach out to someone. Recently I had a meeting with war chaplains who are at the front line because they are psychologists, storytellers, priests, etc., at the front line, and they say turning servicemen into heroes is also a very powerful thing, because that's the only thing that keeps them going. But nobody is going to turn them into heroes because people look away, they don't want to look them in the eye. So my question is, are there any steps taken to encourage them, to motivate them? Maybe this is the question to go to you, Ksenia, who perhaps maybe the government, this society will have to develop a certain number of steps, like it is in the United States when ex-combatants have to go through diagnosing. They're supposed to do that, otherwise they're not relieved home. So some mandatory steps, are they being undertaken? A serviceman, after after they are discharged from the front, they definitely have to go through special diagnosing services. They have to be provided with a route along with which they will have to move. But from they're supposed to and all the way to the way that will be done, there's a whole chasm, a whole gap. And we need to face it. It's impossible to build a system overnight, the system that has never existed before, period. One more time. Never before have we had such a system in place. We are talking about a huge sphere taking care of mental health, which in Ukraine, in essence, is being shaped as a system. Because prior to this point, we lived in a history. This was post-Soviet legacy of punitive psychology. Can we go our own way in just 1 year? Just show me someone who will give their own recipe to us. Definitely no one will. But maybe not instead of, giving accusing the government, the state, or businesses, pointing fingers at them and saying that they're not caring. I would like us to get back to that video. We have to speak about these things, because unless this topic becomes visible, we will never start looking for solutions to these issues. We need to broach these topics because there are no universal recipes. Both the US and Israel and Canada and Australia, the whole experience that we have been studying will be provisionally adaptive for us. Provisionally because we are different. We have to recognize it and face it. If every one of us are not changing, then no state or government will be able to change us. How is this true? This social transformation is taking place right now. It's affecting us if we are aware of that, even if we are not. And the topic of our panel, New Skills and a New Reality, we have to recognize the existence of this new reality. We have to face the music and say, yes, we have to be different. We have to be hyper considerate to each other and somehow try to try to feel whether I have to say something to you or should I keep quiet. What should I say to this woman or to this teenager or adolescent who seems to mistrust everyone? All of these things are just like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle that have to be pieced together. And I want to say a huge thank you for organizing this topic, because it's serviced at an economic forum, and it is meant for the people who are leaders in their own sectors and segments, because it's only leaders who can become such agents of changes. I want to thank our First Lady. It was a very brave action to take, you must agree, to make this topic visible, to take this topic and begin to shape the area, the sector that has never existed before in this country. It's really courageous, because you have to be keenly aware that as you proceed along this way, there will be a whole load of hate you'll be picking up, and you will be blamed for every failure. And I want to thank everyone in this country, men and women, because we know what our strength is about. It's all about this resilience and steadfastness, but it's something that has to be cherished. And by the way, thanking is a very simple therapeutic practice, accessible to everyone. If you have someone to thank today, now, every single day of your life, that means that you can see, senses the meanings of this life, and it's only the meanings that keep us going. And if these plain and simple things are utilized, all of these simple things will help us to deal with the complex, difficult things, because it all is based on how we build our interactions. I understand, Masha, that I've taken more time than I was supposed to, but the experience that Ksenia Voznitsyna has under her belt is unique for Ukraine. The one and only in Ukraine Center of Psychological Relief, Rehabilitation meant for ex-veterans. Ex-combatants. So what should the systemic response to that be? Of course, it needs to be scaled up. We need to disseminate this experience. But Ksenia did not arrive at this point very quickly herself. So this experience needs to be promulgated, and Ksenia is so active in promotion of all of these trainings, probably not only at night when she needs to sleep. And we are a huge country, and these soft skills need to be communicated to every village, town and city. It's a very good thing that here at these big international platforms we have an opportunity to articulate these things. But what can veterans do when they get back to their towns or villages? We have to learn how to treat these people, how to teach these people to interact with each other. What's the role of the business in that? As employers, they will also have to learn to change spaces, change relationships, these social transformations. This is something great that's supposed to take place in our lives, and Ksenia's center will have to pop up in Odessa, for example, in order to meet the needs of the veterans in the southern region of Ukraine. Ola is also scaling up her operations. You will also be setting up centers. Anyway, every single day in your work, you're gaining new experience. You know, another strategic response in this regard. It's really strategic, believe me, because when the All-Ukrainian Program for Mental Health was initiated at the behest of the First Lady, we tried to find strategic answers to painful, rankling issues concerning the changes to be introduced to education, starting from preschool to tertiary education. Nowadays, we have 44,000 workers at primary health care who have been through special training, 44,000 medical workers who have been through this system. They have been certified according to a WHO system, MHCAP, if I'm not mistaken, the name of this program is, and now they can diagnose and provide the necessary relief and help at the manifestations of the most widespread mental diseases. So this is taking place under missile attacks. So during this war, we're honing these skills. It means that a family doctor today can see the patients, the wives of the veterans themselves. At least we have to build this first contact line any area where people get in touch with each other to be able to empower and impart new skills to people. Now let's get back to the government and its functions. You understand, you're saying all of the proper things. Socially, everyone has to feel responsible. Nevertheless, the government, the state, it has to begin with at least a consolidated system of all of the organizations involved in mental health and psychological relief. They all have to get organized because some of them are picking up one kind of learning. A Ministry of Health has sent 10 specialists to Israel. Other institutions do the same. They keep teaching everyone. And we keep hearing, we are all putting out fires. But if at the level of the government there is a uniform system of relief and support, and every veteran, man or woman, knows that they can be helped, at least forwarded to Ksenia, Ola, to us, to a whole host of different organizations engaged in mental health area. Perhaps it will be easier for them at least to think about getting back to civil life. Definitely so. You're right. Quite so. You're saying it all right. There are clear and understandable routes of how to keep going. The only thing is, of course, we are not moving as fast as we should. We, every Ukrainian, and we as the state, the whole architecture of the services in mental health care is clear and understandable. Moreover, it's already approved. Now, the hardest thing that needs to be done to turn these intentions into actions. And the hardest that we have to do, of course, is down to coordination. Now, non-governmental sector, non-governmental organizations, international partners are doing so much. Just get to ask them whether they get coordinated, whether they're ready for that. Not much, but they're still giving their shoulder to the state while this huge ship is trying to steer clear of different rocks and proceed along the course of systemic changes. But this coordination is all about knowing who is targeting what target groups, and most importantly, whether or not they can harm anyone. We are introducing a new training course in a systemic way. This will be done at schools. We'll be introducing self-caring skills, starting with the first grade of primary schools. But most and foremost, at the level of higher education, we have to change the system of professionals' preparation. All of these processes have already been launched into operation. Now, let me give you just one illustration. We have been talking to the people from the Ministry of Digital Transformation concerning the role of the centers of administrative service provision. And they said when such a center resumed its activities in Bucha near Kyiv, one of the first ones to be relaunched into operation after the occupation, people started coming en masse. And they began, the employees began to say, our indicators of efficiency is the speed of servicing, but people, instead of being serviced, would come to talk. So we will have to go through this, speaking through in the spaces, speaking through the experiences that we are just gaining right now. We will have to look for solutions all together. I totally agree with you. Of course, we want to do it as quickly as possible, but we also want to hear about some tangible results, because this is a human psyche. We want to make sure that at least something tangible is being done, because mental health, even a few years ago, it was not a priority at all. Psychologists, they would say, are meant for psychos. And there was a huge research published recently that Ukrainians, having lived through 600 years of war, right now are turning or thinking about turning to psychologists much less than the people in South Africa. Just 1 in 50 or 1 in 100 people thinks about going to see a shrink or a psychologist, although in the Western country it's 1 in 10 people. The same goes for Eastern European countries. Concerning our veterans, our defenders, starting with 2014, they pretty well know that psychologists are okay, and they are demonstrating this readiness because their brothers in arms has been to see a doctor and it worked. And they're ready to embrace this experience, and we can see a lot of people motivated. It's much more than the civilians, so it's true. I understand that unless we deal with civilian women who are raising their kids both as a mommy and a daddy in their households, who are pulling and bearing this brunt, and when their husband comes back, if they break down just because their husbands have come back and they're so different, the roles have changed, and she's in charge right now. They both have changed during this time. I can say the same from my personal experience. We have to appeal with everyone to the ecology of mental states, to dig deeper into that. And before we take a look at specific steps in the area of business, once again, for donors, this topic is not a priority. American companies, which are key donors, who have always articulated their hunger and thirst to help Ukraine. This year they say, just hold on with your mental health. This is no priority for us today. So this is so much mitigated just to the boundaries of Ukraine. But that's something that has to be articulated every single step of the way.
Olesia? First of all, I would like to thank you for being here and for representing business environment. I understand that you can only speak on behalf of the state business, but we need to acknowledge that business is not completely ready to employ the veterans who come back. What's the state of affairs here, in your opinion, in your company? PrivatBank is a state company. There are 18,000 employees and 1,000 offices. We are a huge bank, and I would like to share some thoughts after our previous discussion. First, our experience says that veterans do not want to see psychologists. Our experience shows that adapting and changing professions is difficult for them. Our experience shows that many people who come back can only trust their own people. So we started working so that people who came back from war start being mentors and advising new veterans. Then we need to understand where people want to get back, because some people who come back from active hostilities do not want to start working in some branches, some offices. They want to work for those who are fighting in the front line, and we need to be ready to it. We work on special metrics, but getting back to the question of experience, I just came back from Lviv, and we took all of our 30s top leaders. We wanted them to meet employees and patients in Superhuman Center, and we realized that around 44% of our people will have disabilities, and we made our employees go there and see people with disabilities, and it was very painful for them. I could see it, and we should change everything at the state level. And only after our top leaders saw it and understood how difficult this path is, I started speaking about the strategy our bank should adopt on the basis of the state strategy. But there are several aspects we need to understand. If in a company or a state institution there is no barrier-free strategy that would provide for inclusion, equality, and accessibility. For example, we are also responsible for financial inclusion. Some people are still afraid of bank cards, and then there should be equality. People should have the same rights. We shouldn't ask the question whether people have some degree of disability when we employ them. Some people are ashamed and afraid to acknowledge they have some degree of disability. So we need to change this culture, and it involves many aspects we haven't even started discussing. There is an NGO, Barrierlessness. They are working with state institutions so far. But it's a very important practice. We need to keep implementing it. We need to exchange experience. Not all leaders, not all organizations are ready to acknowledge that we will need to work with people with disabilities, with the veterans, with their family members, and every day we provide services for around 35,000 of people in our branch offices, and you were right to say that it's complicated to get an answer from a hotline. You know why? Because our operators work with people from occupied or deoccupied territories. We have 4,000 operators, but they do not manage to respond to all the calls, and that's why we organized many internal trainings where we will explain how to talk to people, to clients, because these are people, and most of them went through frightening experience because there were people from Kherson, Mykolaiv. So we decided to organize these trainings, but instead of studying, they start speaking because they really need a psychologist to speak to. So many problems wait us, and we are not ready to talk about it today. As a business environment, but all of these aspects should be addressed because the changes should be implemented from the bottom to the top, and if we decide to do it, we need to start talking with the veterans. So we need to go to Chernivtsi and to see a director of a branch office who came back after 10 years of military experience. We saw him crying, though he is 60 years old. So we need to approach these people, and because otherwise no strategies and no changes can be implemented. And some of our leaders are foreigners, and we signed the papers confirming our responsibilities and duties. Of course, we developed new policies. We have a separate policy for veterans, which includes other bonus benefits for veterans. We need to have psychologists in our company because if somebody with PTSD comes to our office, we need to provide help for the client and for the employee who worked with this client. Not everyone can understand the problems they have or they see. Next thing, we need to start this asymmetrical approach to business. Why don't we employ women to some posts, to some vacancies? We need to change legislation too. And we just mentioned it. Can we create mobile branch offices for banks? How should we do it? How should we organize their operation? So there are many questions that need to be solved, and it's not an easy task. It cannot be done quickly, but we can systematize it, accumulate all these questions, and start addressing them. Just one comment, if I may. When we realize the price of inaction, we will understand the necessity of changing the system today, and specifically because we know the predictions for after the war, and all of that awaits us in 3, 5, 7 years or in several generations. Nevertheless, we need to study, we need to become different, but I would just to add that it's true that when businesses start talking about what they fail to do, it's a valuable experience. When we talk to any country representatives, we always ask, please tell us about your mistakes, because we don't have time for these mistakes. We need to talk about this with the society and be honest about the problem of suicides, about the invisible injuries that will lead to some consequences. But we need to be honest about it, and we need to talk about it everywhere. We need to find solutions, and in this case, it will be honest. About the interaction with veterans, we are finalizing our new chapter to the manual about the barrier-free environment, and it will be useful both for civilians and the veterans. And we need people to use it. Thank you very much, Oksana. I think Olesia mentioned a very important thing that I cannot mention too. Until the person feels really serious consequences, they leave outside the war, they start distancing. Probably it's a topic of a separate discussion, but if you're there, you experienced it, you suffered, or somebody among your relatives suffered, you start getting inside it and being closer to it and acting more than before. That's strange, but that's how people work, and we need to take it into account. And in this context, I always think, how should we draw attention to different fundraising campaigns? We can see some posters if they are published. We understand how it works. The funds are raised. The targets are destroyed. But what about mental health? How should we popularize it? How can we show it? We can only show the changes before and after, but it's wrong because people are fragile. Some people don't want to talk about it. They are on their own path. They have their own journey. So encouraging the people who are not affected by war, it's very complicated because it seems like it's a very private and intimate thing, be it civilian or military. So, Ruslana, I would like to say that what you do, you're giving interviews, you tell a lot about yourself, you show and explain how you found the strength to change your life, and sometimes even to the point that it seems like you started a completely new life, however strange it may sound. But it's important because through the examples, through human histories, we can show how it works and how it functions. Please tell us what you are working on today and how are you? Good afternoon. I'm working at the Superhuman Center in the area of recreational rehabilitation. It's about medical, social, psychological rehabilitation, everything that can improve the physical and psychological state of a person. We organize different activities. We may just go to a cafe, having a dinner and talking to each other. We try doing everything for people to feel okay. I'm proud of you. I just want to applaud you for your strength, inner strength. She said that it's a part of rehabilitation, and the person started explaining, you can't understand, it was very complicated for me to go to the beach for the first time without prosthesis. So we want to go to the beach with our guides without prosthesis, undress and be with other normal people. We want them to see us and us to see them. So that was the idea. What about the people who were there? What was their reaction? Was it difficult? Sometimes people look as if they are not next to us. Sometimes they get strange reactions, but all the people after surgeries who are underwent surgeries understand how others might look at them and perceive them. Some got used to it, some cannot cope with it, and that's a big problem because many people start being aggressive, start hating Ukrainians, yes, Ukrainian civilians, because these people can ask them things and start being aggressive. What about going to the beach in Ukraine? Is it possible now? Hypothetically. I know that it's cold today, but hypothetically. We have this huge dream to go to the beach in Yalta. I'll join you. Well, you said it's cold. But you know that chronic stress makes you think that. I'm just saying that, well, in Israel they managed to do it. What about Ukraine? Is it possible in Ukraine? I just wanted to wrap up on this topic, but you started objecting. Okay, what and who helped you become the person you are today? The person who helps everyone, a confident person who invents some rehabilitation methods. You probably were lost at some point. Yes, of course, there was a moment when I didn't want to live, but I would like to say that it was a long journey. When I didn't want anything, I had my close people next to me, and I could see how my brother and my stepfather were crying. I realized I didn't have a right to say that I didn't want to live. So I started convincing them that I will deal with it. And that's how I managed to improve my state without specialists. I had a specialist. I worked with a psychologist. She helped me a lot, and she showed me that we are the only ones who decide how we perceive this world. We decide how to react to things. What can you advise our veterans to make this decision to see a psychologist? To be honest, if we think about it, a grown-up man who was killing there, how can he come here to see another man who just spends a workday and comes back home? I think this ex-warrior will not trust. They can see a female specialist. Well, they can, but there are psychologists who are combat veterans, and they might help more. So it's a matter of trust. Yes, I think so, because our man saw true hell there. I'm sorry, I should comment here. The topic of mental health should not be melted with psychotherapy, this topic should be raised from the point of view of the quality of good training. Many psychologists are in this gray zone, and this should be addressed by means of implementing unique standards and certificates. Not all the psychologists and specialists without combat experience are unable to help. Yes, of course, and it should be taken into account and communicated to the colleagues. Professionalism is the main thing. When there is a safe space, when there is trust, it's the main thing. In some rehabilitation centers, specialists don't have combat experience. However, they have a colossal credit of trust among veterans because they are not only good specialists, but they understand the specifics of army, of service, of military service. It's a separate area in education. So there is already a group of great specialists who can help, and I'm glad to acknowledge that there are great specialists in Ukraine.
Ruslana seems to have said a very important thing, who veterans trust. And we mustn't ignore that. Unless a veteran tells you, if a veteran tells you, Oksana and Ruslana know that if you have been there, you haven't been there, what do I have to discuss with you? So this is a trigger kind of question when people are sitting and saying, oh, I understand you so well. You cannot understand them. I cannot understand Zhenya, Oleg or Ruslana. I cannot understand them because I do have my forelimbs in place and they don't. In the morning, I go to the toilet, but the people forget that they don't have legs and they just drop down. So the idea is about building trust, and there are some tools in the government and the state, and we're beginning to implement these professionals of the first contact. These are veterans who are not psychologists, but they begin to convince their brothers in arms. I have been there, it has helped me, so they're kind of a bridge. But sorry, Ksenia, the professionals that you have at your center are very few in the country. Yes, definitely. And one thing that I would like to say, so that we are all united in this topic when we're talking about mental health, no matter how harsh it sounds, if there is a surgical pathology, a trauma in place, understandably, it's clear that we have to see the surgeon and be operated on. So finding approach to someone who has a mental disorder, it's very hard to approach these people. It takes sometimes half a year to get through to these men for them to start realizing that they do require this assistance. It's a major challenge for psychologists and psychiatrists. Finding a motivated veteran is a true success, believe me. Usually it takes a few months before they get convinced, and this is a particular issue that we have to deal with. So mental health professionals, they have to be universal soldiers, being equipped in different skills and techniques. Ksenia, you always have something to say, but during this panel I'm being very selfish, and I will still say that we need a special separate forum dedicated to mental health in Ukraine. All of us are businessmen, everyone is busy talking about the economy of Ukraine, but it seems to me that we have thrown a lot of light on this topic, saying that if half of our country are in mental decay, there is something else. White depression, when people are working side by side with you, but tomorrow they can just get out of the window and commit suicides because people are living and surviving, digesting the trauma of war in their own ways. There will be a whole raft of different manifestations. There will be addicted people, suicidal people. You cannot imagine to what extent nowadays mental clinics are overwhelmed, overcrowded, because all of the people that they have been trying to help, addicted people, have left. So this is a teaser, just a teaser to everything which is in store for us. So if some businessmen, representatives of large companies, very rich people who do not prioritize mental health suddenly want to fund a cool, awesome fund dedicated to or conversation or a big forum dedicated to mental health, that'll be fantastic, because unless we all get out and unless we get rid of this trauma buried inside of us, we will not be able to recover this country economically. So thank you very much for coming. I thank all of the speakers for your awareness, for your comprehensive approach, for everything that you're doing. But of course, we have so much more lying ahead of us. I wanted to make one more point. It's really funny that we only have women panelists, and at 16:30 there will be another panel dedicated to business, and there I will be in the company of men. But the point is that once again, predominantly women are taking care of mental health issues in Ukraine, and there are fantastic men who are also into psychiatry, psychology. Men are coming in from the front. So gender balance is another thing that we need to tackle, because predominantly men will require this help. And next year, if we have this panel at this forum that hopefully people will find funding for to organize, there will be predominantly men as panel speakers, so that they can raise these issues and build this credibility, because women tend most of the time to talk, and it's easier for us to go through our mental problems. It's easier for us to go to psychologists or shrinks. I don't want to be a sexist, but let's face this, it's true. Today there have been two fantastic statements made. In fact, this war has demonstrated to us very clearly what is inhumanity all about, and how much humanity is within everyone. How much human we are, it's something which is true about every one of us, something that will give impetus to all of us to get changed, have another perspective, go into other interaction with others. People have to, the whole country needs to hear a lot of such stories, and this will be the country's immersive experience. And secondly, another key statement, because it's an economic forum after all, the most valuable currency that needs to be invested in both now and always is trust. Trust is forged by people. We have to target this as well, and I have to apologize to Rusia because I kind of interrupted her. Trust starts where we work at the level peer-to-peer. Rusia has changed roles, and right now she's working on building this trust, and we thank you for that. Let's not stop. Dear ladies, dear guests, let's not stop at this. See you next year at a new big forum dedicated to the issues of mental health, hopefully. Thank you very much indeed.